Okay, welcome to the Flow.BI analyst call for the third quarter. Just get ready here. Yeah, we have this meeting here essentially every 3 months, every second Tuesday, every 3 months essentially, and to discuss the new features inside Flow.BI, essentially what's available now, what we're working on, what our plan is for the next quarter essentially. So let me just share my screen here and let more people in. Seconds. Okay, so I have to admit how we going here. Yeah, this is a public meeting. If you have any questions, you can use, you can either join, so you will receive a newsletter with the link to join essentially. And then also, if you have any questions, you can also use the comment function here in the media player essentially to ask your questions. Okay, so let's talk about the next features that we implemented. First of all, everything you see in this presentation, yeah, there's a risk that these features will not make it into final implementation. I show you a lot of features which are already there. They might slightly still change if you find some improvements for the user interface, for example. And also, I'm going to discuss some upcoming features, and that's really where it is important. I'm not guaranteeing that every upcoming feature will be in a software as we showed here today, essentially. All right. So what happened in the last 3 months? We did some minor model improvements. We worked on the web front end, that's for sure. We worked on the backend, and I want to discuss the roadmap essentially. All right. So first of all, for those of you who don't know Flow.BI yet, it's essentially a Gen AI to define the raw data vault, including the hubs, including business keys, including links, satellites, including security, privacy, rate change splits, including special entity types like FAQ satellites, non-historized links, reference data, and so on. It's fully data-driven, so Flow.BI relies on your attached data sets, including the metadata and the data itself, to analyze the data, profile the data, and then come up with the raw data model for all your data, essentially, to capture all your data in a consistent fashion. It does not generate the physical model, so it will not generate you the create table statements or the insert statements for your raw data vault. It will only in quote unquote, it will only define which hubs, links, satellites should exist to capture all your data in a consistent fashion. And then we call this the logical model. This logical model is then handed over as metadata to one of the established database automation tools. And at the moment, we support Data Builder, which is a strategic partner, and we support Scale-Free's Data Vault for dbt package via Turbo Vault. Those options are available, and there's some vendors which are working on more options, but they are essentially coming. We're not there yet. And they're not there yet, so I can announce it essentially. And these tools will then create the physical model. So Flow.BI will only define the raw data vault. It will define the hubs and satellites to be used, and the partner tool will then create the physical model. That's the basic idea. So Flow.BI acts like a teammate who knows your source systems, who knows how to model the raw data vault, and who knows the tool of your choice, and comes up with the whole raw data vault for your design, for your incoming data sets, essentially. Yeah, and it includes not only the model definition, like which hubs and satellites do you have, but also from where do you need to load those hubs, links, satellites. The loading procedures, essentially, they are also defined by Flow.BI, both. All right. So model improvements, we did a little bit of that. So first of all, we added a data vault tag to the generate model, to all the entities, all the attributes, everything. I know you wonder why. Why do we need a data vault tag? Because Flow.BI can generate more than data vault. We could generate any data-driven model. Data vault for sure. We can distinguish between data vault 1.0 and data vault 2.0, for example. We can distinguish. We can create some specialized data vault models. And we can also create anything else, like a 3NF Inman style data model, but without business logic. We could create some data mesh designs and so on. One big table or multiple big related tables, for example, and so on. Different designs. And to support that in parallel, we added the data vault tag, so we would be able to add additional models essentially to Flow.BI essentially in parallel. We also did some bug fixes, minor changes, minor improvements. That's what we also did, but it's nothing super important there. All right, for the web front end, We update the reporting engine to the latest engine. That's only minor changes. So there's nothing special or nothing important there that's relevant, essentially. We did some additional feature where I don't have a screenshot for, but it's the asynchronous update. So in some screens of Flow.BI, updates take a long time, a couple of seconds per record sometimes. Reason is manifold. The database sometimes is too slow. The backend database of Flow.BI. Sometimes some operations take some more time. That's why it is, and to versionize all the changes and everything else. And that's why we added some progress bar. So when you have multiple changes, you hit the save button. Then there's a small progress bar on the lower right where you see the progress of the updates essentially. Yeah, there's more people coming. So that's small change in the UI. Then we have two bigger changes. One is the metadata translation, and the other thing is the other feature is to influence the business key selection. So for the metadata translation, the idea is this: sometimes we have data sources where the metadata is in different languages than English. So let's say we have a German data source, Star Money, for example, or SAP with abbreviated German terms. And what our clients want to use is, or want to have is, a English data warehouse, data platform, where all the metadata, all the satellite names, all the hub names, everything is in English. Now, if previously, when you attach a data source which was non-English or had abbreviations and so on, those terms ended up in the target raw data vault. So your satellite names might be English, but then you have attribute names all in German or abbreviated Germans and so on. That was not really nice. So we added a feature where you can translate the metadata from the source all the way into English, either manually by just overriding the translation text, or by using an AI translator and translating all the terms at once, essentially, or single rows, essentially. And the system will tell you if it's the original string or the translated string and so on. And so that's one thing. But what about those customers who don't want to use an English data warehouse or data platform, who want to have a data platform in, let's say, German or Norwegian or something? So this tool also allows you to translate the metadata of the logical model, which is in English by default, into any language you want. And that's what you see here. You see essentially here the English terms from the logical model, and you can translate this into German, French, anything else. So you can have a data platform where the satellite names, the hub link satellite names, attributes, and so on are not in English. Jonas.
Yeah, what AI do you use for translation?
We use some, at the moment we use Azure, but we
Okay.
could change that. So we use the Azure AI translator, but the translation is really, or the integration is really loose, so we could
Yeah,
change.
yeah. Because I think like DeepL or something like that is really good for like from the quality of translation because they really get like also the
Yeah,
very fine details right, I would say.
yeah. We could think about this. We're looking
Yeah.
for some solutions which work in some cloud environment is one thing. The other thing is it's loosely coupled because once we hitting the on-premise environments, we need to have some on-premise translation tool, and
Yeah.
those exist as well. So that's why we have a very loose coupling essential in this
Sure.
regard.
Okay.
In
Thank you.
the yep, in the underlying expert system, we added some functionality for the translations, but they are essentially providing you a transparent way of calling the translation service. So you wouldn't have to change the rules just because we changed from Azure to AWS or to something else. It doesn't really matter. You don't see that. Except the quality, I agree. So that might be different. All right. So that's a big change essentially. So we can now translate the non-English data sources, and by that I mean the metadata-wise, not data-wise. We can translate those terms into English and translate the logical model into something else than English, essentially. For the business keys, we receive one common feedback that users would like to influence which business keys are selected, essentially. And yeah, they just want to influence this. And the other thing is, there's another feature where we can use this. Think about this. Let's say you have a run where Flow.BI selects a certain number of business keys. And typically there's well, we get inputs from the AI, we get inputs from the profiling, and then the expert system, based on the inputs, makes some choice. However, there are some cases where random choices are made as well. When you have two essential options and both are equally valuable, then Flow.BI might make a random choice, which means that there's a slight risk. First of all, this random choice is not that often, to be honest, but there's a slight risk that essentially the model changes from one version to the next. It changes the business keys, right? Or the columns to be used as business keys. And that's resulting in a different raw data model, essentially. And that's where also people are scared a bit of. First of all, it's not that bad, but I see the risk. And we are going to use this feature here, not only for you to select or to influence the system to make better choices, but also we're going to use it in a way that the business keys for the next run are influenced by the business key selection of the previous run. And that stabilizes even further the business key selection if the data hasn't changed in a way that a business key change is required. That might be also the case, but then the data forces us to use some other business key essentially. So we use it twofold. So it's essentially it's quite simple design. For each source table, and source table means here essentially for each data source, catalog, schema, and table, you can select which combination of columns do you want to prioritize. And for prioritization, you can use a value between -5 and 5, including 0. 0 means essentially no prioritization. And with this priority level, you can essentially either improve the chance that Flow.BI will go for this combination of columns to be used as business key, or decrease it essentially. So essentially to avoid those columns. That works as well. But again, the problem is, or the thing is this, that Flow.BI makes the final call. So this is just a prioritization, but Flow.BI might ignore it, what you tell the system here, or it might actually use it. It's up to Flow.BI essentially to make a final call. Because Flow.BI essentially tries to find a complete model, and that's a very detailed decision here, and that's why it's just an inference essentially. I don't like the fact that these numbers are here, or these characters here, F and A to K. We're going to change that to a value 0 from -5 to +5 essentially. That's how we prioritize. All right. Yeah, but it's always multiple columns because there might be multiple columns to be used as a business key essentially to make it unique. All right, so yeah, and in the next step now, which is not implemented yet, but in the next step, we're going to use the business keys from the previous run and just add them to this table here. So all the previous business keys that we selected for you will show up here, and then you can essentially modify them, change the prioritization for the next run, essentially. That's the basic idea. But it's an upcoming feature, that's not implemented yet. All right. For the backend, we have some changes as well, but those are in the works, so they're not complete yet. And as I said initially, the safe harbor statement, that's really related to these features here, but there's some customer demand. So we have a support in testing already for Google BigQuery as a data source, because we have multiple clients where this becomes relevant essentially. And then we have the that's it. My fear was a bit because of the JBC driver from Google. My fear was that it's a bit more complicated, but it's actually not. So it's actually all good. And then we also have a request for local data processing and local data storage to run in a Google Cloud. So the Docker image that we provide for those cases where the client would like to process essentially all the data on their own infrastructure. Google Cloud is in the works, so it's coming up. And then also for local data storage, it's also in the works to support Google Cloud Storage and BigQuery. That's not as a data source, that's more or less done. But that's really for the runtime environment where we use on AWS, for example, Athena, and where we use on Azure, we use SQL pools. And now we support BigQuery on Google Cloud essentially against the Google Cloud Storage. And there will be an abstraction layer implemented so that we can support more options. My guess would be that one of the next features is to have the local data processing and local data storage also on premise. So you can run this essentially against a local Hadoop cluster, for example, or something similar. And on premise, we have many options that I anticipate what clients want. And that's why we introduce this abstraction layer to support query engines like Impala or Apache Drill or Trino and so on, all at the same time or very similar fashion, essentially. But it's all in discussion yet. Papat. Oh, sorry, he's coming in. Sorry, I just thought. Okay, so that's in works. To have more options essentially on premise available once we're there. So, but we're not there yet, right? All right. Roadmap wise, I'm showing this roadmap here every quarter, and last time the business key identification was open, but it was marked as bold, so to be implemented essentially, and the support for translation of metadata was open. Those are checked off now. We're going to improve the business key identification a bit, using the business keys from the previous run and adding them to your business key influence essentially to stabilize them. And yeah, next, I think our focus at the moment is on POCs and running more POCs essentially. I have two more features here. One is the set of initial reports. That's certainly coming up. There will be a set of reports coming for documentation purposes. So we're working at the moment on several examples, like Willibald. You saw this on the screen too a bit. Willibald, for example. And the goal is to publish those results from Flow.BI on a public GitHub. And we're not going to publish any code like SQL statements, create table statements, insert statements, but we're going to publish a PDF document documenting the model that we generated essentially to make it more abstract, because we're just producing the logical model, no physical model. So that's why we use the reporting engine to produce these reports essentially. And those reports are coming. Those are currently in the works, and more and more coming along the path essentially. And the integration of embedded documentation, yeah, it's not that the most important feature at the moment, to integrate the documentation a bit more into the user interface. Let's see if we can get this done essentially. All right. Yeah, any questions from your side? Any additional questions from your side? All right. So yeah, then thanks for joining. And I hope to see you on in November. I believe November 11 will be the next meeting. Again, we changed the format here a bit to a public session. So next time I would expect more people joining from the outside, essentially from public. So yeah, that's coming up. Cool. Thank you guys for joining. See you next in 3 months again. Okay, cool.
Bye.
Thank you guys.